Another thing that happened this week, and it's funny because and look, I get it. I don't mind. As I've told my wife many times, the same passion that gets fans riled up about the things I say, the ideas I have, the posts I write, it's the passion that gets them to the website in the first place. If you don't care about football, if you're not fully invested in your team, if you're not all in, not in the Jerry Jones way, but in the, like, this is what I love, this is what I'm about, this is what I do, then you're not going to get upset about stuff. So I don't mind that people get upset, because we're here to serve the passionate. And when you serve the passionate, they're going to be passionate about all sorts of things, including the way you serve them. So with that said, the Caleb Williams contract. Here's what happened. I'm at the beach, and yeah, I was kind of working, but it's not like I'm looking for stuff to take up even more of my time. So as we got to the 16th, that would have been Tuesday. That's the day the Bears rookies report. And, you know, over the weekend, we were exploring this angle of Caleb Williams telling the world that he's not handling his contract, to the Bears telling the NFL that they are dealing directly with him because he's not represented by an NFLPA certified agent. And by rule, the Bears aren't allowed to talk to anybody but him. But he created the impression that he wasn't the one doing the talking. And this is not uncommon now when we're dealing with a small group of players who choose to represent themselves. Most of those guys aren't really representing themselves. What they're choosing to do is be represented by someone other than an NFLPA certified agent. And then what happens is they set up a dummy email account that is supposedly the player, but it's actually the lawyer, the non-certified agent, whoever it is that's dealing with the team on the player's behalf. So that was as the week began. And yeah, it makes it a little clunky, and that may be one of the reasons why they didn't have a deal done. So, boom. Here comes Tuesday. Deal's done. And all these Bears fans upset at me. Oh, stick it. Oh, Florio, you didn't know what you're talking about. Well, it doesn't change the facts as we were laying them out. It just shows that through this somewhat awkward procedure, they managed to get a deal done. And everybody reported it was done. Everybody reported, and I don't know how many said it was signed, but that was the prevailing message. Rome Odunze, the 9th overall pick, signs. And then later in the day, Caleb Williams is signed. And this is me minding my own business in Oak Island, North Carolina, trying to hang out with my little great nephew who's 2 years old, and we had a great time with him. I started getting text messages, hey, this Caleb Williams deal isn't done. And my first reaction wasn't, yes, to the Bat Cave. My first reaction was, shit, I really don't want to mess with this right now. So I actually ignored it at first. I was just like, well, maybe this person's wrong. I didn't want to deal with it. I was being lazy. Sue me. Then by the morning, it's like, much as I really don't want to start rubbing this lamp, it's kind of what I do. It's kind of why I'm here, vacation or not. I'm not asking for any special. I'm just I'm leading up to the point that I ultimately will make. I think, who knows? But I started to do some due diligence and came to the conclusion this contract isn't signed. Now, I also said there's no reason to believe that it won't be, that they do have an agreement. They were haggling over language, but the contract was not signed. And I specifically worked on that because I do 2 spots per week on The Score in Chicago, and I wanted to tell them because I knew that it was going to come up at some point. And it came up right out of the gates, and I said, hey, by the way, your quarterback has not signed his contract. And again, I said the deal is essentially done, but he hasn't signed yet. And through this process of figuring out what happened, I learned that one of the terms he tried to get was a commitment from the Bears not to use the franchise tag, which is permissible under the CBA. We've seen it with other contracts, most notably Dak Prescott with the Cowboys. That's one of the reasons why they don't have an extension in place. The Cowboys don't have the leverage that is baked in by the numbers that would be available under the franchise tag. And they don't have the fallback of, if all else fails, we'll just tag you like they did twice before. They can't do it this time. So it's either sign him or he goes to the market, and the market determines his value. And if you let him get to the market, it's going to cost you a lot more, maybe, than what it would cost right now. That would be why any player would want to have the franchise tag taken off the table. It doesn't mean Caleb Williams doesn't want to spend his whole career with the Bears. What it does is it allows the player to make more money. See, that was the reaction I saw. Oh, well, if he's good, they'll extend his contract, so they'll never use the franchise tag anyway. That's not the point. The point is the threat of the tag. The cap that the tag puts on your earnings in year 6 and 7 of your career. Because for a first-round pick, 4-year contract, 5th-year option, year 6 franchise tag 1, year 7 franchise tag 2, that artificial limit flowing from the franchise tag calculation makes it harder to get market value. You can always get more if you go to the market and all teams are competing, ostensibly. Not that every team would line up to try to get Caleb Williams, but who knows? I mean, if it was Patrick Mahomes, every team would be lining up to get him. So there's a reason for not wanting it there, and it doesn't mean I want to leave Chicago. It means I want to get the most money that I can. I want to try to beat this system. One way to beat the system is take 3 tags and then become a free agent like Kirk Cousins did. Another way to beat the system is to bake into your contract, you're not going to tag me, like Dak Prescott has done. No rookie's ever done that, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. Williams tried, and he didn't get it. Now, I don't know whether an agent would have gotten it for him. And I'm not going to even begin to suggest that any agent would have pulled this off. But maybe, and I'm always reluctant to name names or name agencies because then the other ones will be wearing me out. Why didn't you mention us? But there are a couple of quarterback specialty agencies that have enough clientele that maybe they could have pulled this off. And the way that it was explained to me, and I also have kind of thought it through, the argument would be, hey, the dad's very involved, and that's good. I'd be very involved if it was my son. And Carl Williams is involved in commercial real estate. He's had a lot of great ideas from what I've heard through the grapevine about how to best position his son. That's what we would all want for our sons. And as sons, that's what we would all want our fathers to do. So you could say to the Bears, if you're one of these agents that represents, other guys on the team, other guys that maybe the Bears want in the future, we got to make this guy happy. And if this person that you have the relationship with is saying, hey, you got to help me out here. Carl really wants this for his son. You got to give me something here. We got to do this. I think that somebody who can leverage relationships and the fact that they have other clients now and in the future that are going to be negotiating with that same team might have had a chance to do it. If you've been watching Hard Knocks, you can see that in the Brian Burns negotiations, for example, Joe Shane, the Giants GM, tapped into his long-standing relationship with Dan Morgan, the Panthers GM, to maybe get a little better deal. Hey, we need to have friends in this business. He made a comment along those lines. Sometimes it's beneficial to have an agent who represents no one else in the NFL like Russell Wilson has. Then you can take big swings and not be concerned about who you might hit with the bat because you don't have any other clients whose interests are going to be undermined if every team decides this person's an asshole and I don't want to deal with him. But if you have high-profile clients, if you have deep relationships founded on trust with executives, maybe you could be the one to pull it off. And whatever the percentage is, and look, here's why most of these players who choose to represent themselves are doing it. They are offended by the concept of giving up 1%, 2%, or 3% to someone over the next 5 years when they could hire somebody and pay them by the hour. I understand that. I don't like that idea either. Already giving Uncle Sam 37%, and then whatever the state tax requirements might be. Yeah, I don't want to give 3% to somebody who makes a couple of phone calls. But what you're also getting is the benefit of that person's experience and knowledge and ability to take those relationships and spin them into something that would have been worth far more than its weight in gold. Whatever the percentage fee would have been, the money that Caleb Williams would have made, assuming he works out, assuming he's good, assuming he's a franchise quarterback, the money he would have made by not having the Bears in a position to tag him, not having that leverage hanging over him when he negotiates his next contract, it would have more than paid whatever fee the agent would have charged. Now, I haven't forgotten that I promised to make a point when I was rambling earlier, not to be confused with the rambling I'm doing now. At the end of the day, when he signed, and this really is, it's funny to me, it's frustrating, but all I can do is laugh about it. Okay, so everyone reports Caleb Williams is signed. We report he hasn't actually signed, but there's a deal in place and they're haggling over language. When he finally does sign after that, Bears fans, not all, but some, are like, oh, see, you were wrong. What about that timeline tells you I was wrong? It's completely accurate. They didn't announce the signing the day everyone said he had signed. They announced it after he actually signed, which came after I said, hey, he hasn't signed. And the deal is done. They're just haggling over language. So, and again, I was on vacation. I wasn't looking, you're just doing this for clicks. No. I don't need to do that anymore. Maybe there was a time when I did years ago when we were trying to get noticed and trying to establish ourselves. It was a different time in the internet and, you really didn't understand how it was all going to work. But now I really don't need to have clickbait. I don't need to try to make something out of nothing. I just try to find stories that I think are interesting. And it becomes interesting when everyone is saying this guy signed his contract and I'm getting multiple text messages saying, hey man, he hasn't signed yet. So that's where we are. He has signed. He is under contract. And at the end of the day, it is a pretty standard deal. He gets his signing bonus in full within 15 days of signing. My understanding is it's standard language for what would void his guarantees. There's no offset language. If they would cut him with money left on his guarantees, if he goes to, there are offsets. I may have misspoke. If he goes to another team, he can't double dip. Let's say he's got $10 million still left to be made from the Bears. I'm just pulling a number out of the air. And he gets cut and he goes and signs with the Dolphins or anyone. Whatever he makes from a new team, the Bears would have their liability to him reduced. So I actually might have the contract now that I got to protect my sources, but there's a chance I have the contract. There's a chance that we might be able to see exactly what's in there and what's not in there. But at the end of the day, this guy had a ton of leverage. They made some big swings. I haven't even mentioned the tax loopholes that they were trying to take advantage of, which are legitimate. There's nothing wrong with that. I saw some negative reaction to the fact that Caleb Williams was trying to negotiate this contract in a way that would be advantageous from a tax standpoint. Unless you're breaking the law, that's permissible. Don't you think every person with money has an accountant who tries to help that person minimize tax? And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but the laws are the laws. You don't just give money away. If you're going to just give it away, give it to charity. Uncle Sam's doing fine. Deficit. Uncle Sam's doing fine. So if they want to change the laws on what's available by way of the different ways you can pay taxes, then change it. Slam the door on any loopholes. I got no problem with Caleb Williams being very creative. There are things I've heard about like trying to be paid as an LLC, having money treated as a forgivable loan that would be forgiven in 10 years, which is when it would become income. And 10 years from now, presumably he's making a lot more money. So he's not feeling the pinch and he gets to use the money for 10 years interest-free before he has to pay the taxes. Think about what $1 million in taxes today would be a million years from now. Not much at all. 10 years from now, that same million doesn't hit the same way because, the value of money keeps going up and up. Anyway, enough of that. That was the Caleb Williams adventure for the week. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.